Is this going to be as torturous as the last time I saw it? Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Greg, and on this channel, I defend all the nerdy movies and TV shows that you like that the internet says you shouldn't. Because on this channel, your fandom matters. If you're a fan of Zack Snyder's Man of Steel movie, you've had to hear almost 10 years of people dogging on it. As someone who didn't really like the movie, I wanted to give it a second chance and actually figure out what is it that's really good about this movie, what makes it art, and what is it that fans really like? The first thing I want to get through is that Zack Snyder is a brilliant visual filmmaker. I mean, everything looks completely gorgeous. There are some obvious visual cues that how Zack Snyder wants to portray the Superman, from a Jesus-like figure to even becoming more colorful the more he becomes the hero that we all want him to be. I also want to say that the acting in here is generally done pretty well. Henry Cavill is a great Superman, but I want to get into the plot points that actually make sense about this movie. So first, I want to get to one of the big ones when Superman's a kid and he saves that bus full of kids from drowning, and Pa Kent gives him the line of, well, maybe you should have just let them die. This seems very antithetical to the not only Superman character himself, but also to Pa Kent, and I totally get that. I would rather have a Pa Kent who's the one like in the comics, or the one like in the old Superman movies, or even like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. Here's the thing, and this is what I actually think Zack Snyder does well. He sets up the conflict that Superman's going to have to come back to over and over again, which is, can he actually do good while only benefiting himself? The worry that his adoptive parents have for him is that he is going to be taken away and is going to be experimented on, which, to be honest, is kind of a legitimate concern. Is it right? I don't think it's right. Personally, is it understandable from a plot perspective and from a character perspective? It kind of is. And that leads more into this introspective version of Superman. The classic Superman story is how this immigrant from another planet with godlike powers, how does this person actually interact with humanity and relate to humanity? The way that Zack Snyder takes it, and I think it's really well illustrated in the scene at the bar where Clark destroys the truck, is how does one actually live in the world and keep their secret while interacting with the darker sides of humanity? And I think this scene really shows what happens with that conflict. And he destroys this truck, and while it should seem obvious to most, he leaves right away, probably doesn't even give his real name and everything else when he first got that job, so it's not like anybody could really track him. And I think this is also nice to see that Superman actually has some internal conflict, actually has some anger that he'll feel, and that he's still an evolving character. This is what I like about this movie that I think does well, is that we actually start at a point where Superman has a place to grow into, whereas I think in a lot of movies we actually just see Superman being a good guy without a lot of change going on. I want to also touch on some of the points about Zod and his destruction of Metropolis and just in towns in general when Superman is fighting him. I think this makes more sense than not. Superman knows a little bit about his powers, but not to the extent that maybe Zod and his trained fighters. I actually think that Superman isn't really being aware of what's happening around him. He's not quite the hero that we want him to be yet. He's still growing. Rookies in the NBA or in the NHL or in the NFL, they aren't natural, awesome phenoms to start. Most rookies are still learning to grow and deal with their own athleticism and their own power, so to say. So from a story perspective, even the destruction of Metropolis makes sense. However, most of Metropolis, let's be real, was actually destroyed by the World Engine and those types of machines. And finally, the big one, him killing Zod. Now, this does seem like there could have been other options, but I'm going to go back to him being basically a rookie superhero. He doesn't know all the options. He hasn't had the experience yet. And I think we really need to see him being at his lowest point. And I think we would have seen more of this had Zack Snyder been able to take his vision of this character throughout. And I think he was doing a lot of really great setup and taking some pretty big choices with Superman. But by the way, let's not act like Superman hasn't killed anybody before in any other iteration. He has. He's done a lot of that, in fact. But it makes sense from a story perspective, especially if you're thinking about the arc and the greater arc of the character. I do understand why people like it because of some of the bigger themes that are going on in here, a different take on Superman. That's understandable. But it wasn't until the end of this movie, when the credits started rolling, when I realized something. This movie is truly art. This movie really is something that's different. This wasn't necessarily a movie for people who watched all of the Justice League cartoon or watched the Richard Donner Superman. This was a movie that really seemed to be for people who understood the growth and the three-dimensional character of what Superman can be. It was for the fans who like things like Superman Red Sun or Injustice, seeing a different side of this character and seeing it being evolved. And it all goes back to the things like the bus scene at the very beginning. Superman is a character who is struggling to figure out what is best for him as a foreigner to our planet, and what is best for the planet and the people there. Is it great art? Maybe not for me, but it might be great art for people who love it. And that's what's important, because there are some cool things about it that I definitely saw within this movie that I can see why people like it so much. And Man of Steel was only the first part of the Snyderverse. And if you want to check out some of my other defenses of the different DC movies, you can check out that video right up here. And I will see you in my next video.